Now I want to talk a little bit about the patterns that you saw me drawing out on both the cork and the bottom board and the tail insert. These are patterns that I developed, and in essence I have 4 total patterns that I use for this Canvasback decoy. One you have not seen me draw out yet is the head pattern. We'll talk about that later. The ones that you did see me, you saw me drawing out the top profile or the plan view of the decoy onto the cork. You saw me then also drawing out the tail insert onto the 1 inch, or excuse me, 1/2 inch pine stock. The tails are 1/2 inch thick. You can make them out of any thickness. I like the 1/2 inch because it's not quite as bulky, and you can take it down and make it look a lot thinner, easier than if you just used dimension 1 inch lumber, which is really 3/4 inch. But that's for the tail insert. Now, one thing you didn't see me draw out was the bottom board. Now, a lot of people will draw or will attach their bottom board as a flat board, block size, whatever, but have the same dimension as their cork. Now, that's okay, but there's a lot of wood that has to be removed in order to get the chine, which is the roundness of the side or and bottom of the decoy, in order to get it to a shape that I like. So what I do is I actually cut the bottom board smaller. You might be able to see that it is smaller on the pattern. It's actually a little bit smaller to account for that rounding shape. Now, this is what it looks like. Now, that you have to look kind of past the glue that's oozed out, but on this one that's glued up, I'll demonstrate what I mean.
The bottom board sides are rounded or beveled with a rasp or belt sander and then smoothed with a spoke shave. Care must be taken to not violate the uppermost portion of the board or the edge on the top where it will transition to the cork.
Now, to get ready to glue these up, I take my brass tacks that they're canoe tacks that I get from Lee Valley. Drive a couple of them in about halfway, and then what we're going to do with those is then we're going to take a pair of side cutters. Now, cover your eyes and be sure you wear some kind of eye protection because these heads will come off, but just snip the heads of the brass canoe tacks off. That one popped off pretty authoritatively. So did that one. Now, when you cut those off, they'll be relatively sharp because the side cutters will make an angled cut. Now, what this is going to do is when we put that glue on, it will keep this thing from sliding around. Glue's kind of slippery, and I'll use for this, and I learned this from Captain Jeff Coates, who's also a pretty accomplished decoy carver. For cork and wood, I don't necessarily use the West system for this part of the decoy. I use a combination of Titebond 3, glue, and Gorilla Glue. Put them both on there at the same time, and it fills gaps, doesn't take a lot of pressure to clamp. The Gorilla Glue will absorb into the voids of the cork, and then the Titebond 3, which is the waterproof version of the Titebond, it creates an additional hold in there. Now, as you can see, it's I haven't pressed it down, but when I get it in the final position, once I get the glue, I'll press it down, and then I can apply pressure, and it won't slide around on me. I've got the bottom boards pinned in place. I've also got them glued with Tight Bond 3 and Gorilla Glue. I mix them both together, and then I can compress them or clamp them, so to speak, with weights. And the good thing about the Gorilla Glue is it doesn't require a lot of clamping pressure, just like, but the wood glue, it does require some clamping pressure. And right now I've got 80 pounds of pressure on top of those 4 decoys. I've also got the radiant heater on them because it's still relatively cold in here today. The thermometer right there where they're clamped at showed about 65 degrees, so it should be plenty warm enough for that to set up, and it'll set up rather quickly. It'll start dripping down. As you can see, it's running out. They're separated by parchment paper, and that way they don't start sticking to anything other than what I want it to. And as you can see right here, it's oozing out pretty good. So it'll be good. I'll clean all that off, and it won't stick to anything, and we'll be ready.